No.
I know. Right. You need more information than that in a video like this. So you are looking through the AverMedia PW513 for the delectation and delight of your eye holes. This is a $250/£250 new 4K webcam to the market. It contains a Sony Exmor R 4K CMOS image sensor, which was primarily used in GoPro style, not actual GoPros, but GoPro style action cams. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Probably not. The camera was released to the market with much anticipation, very high expectations, and much hype. And it was received by the customer base with crushing disappointment and many RMAs, people sending it back. So I want to talk about what happened. Why were the expectations set in the way they were? Why were people so disappointed, and what went wrong? Where's this camera suited for? Where is it not suited for? And what's the deal with it, right? Because it's not as cut and dry as you might think. And why were especially why the expectations were set in the way that they were. But first, we'll talk about the vital stats of the camera. The sensor, if you're interested in looking it up, the model of the sensor is the Sony Exmor R IMX317 image sensor. It doesn't appear to be a popular sensor, but it was primarily used in the Xiaomi Mijia? I'm not pronouncing that right, probably. Umbrella action cam, which appears to be a low budget, entry-level action cam. There's all kinds of footage on YouTube of people uploading clips of it to YouTube when they did their product reviews of it. Hey, great camera out for outdoor. Oh, stunning outdoor camera footage. As soon as someone brought it indoors, it fell apart. Low light footage was awful. Funny, that sensor's made its way into a webcam whose natural habitat is indoors. I don't know. But that's what's happened. There's an f2.8 aperture lens sat over that sensor, which is okay. It's got a 94 degrees field of view, which is nice for some, not so nice for others. It's fixed focus as well, so there's no autofocus on this, which again is a bummer for some, but I've not found any issues with focusing. Everything so far has been in focus. Resolutions, it does 4K at 30 frames per second or 1080p at 60, but the 1080p at 60 is pretty poor, like really poor, fuzzy, blurry mess, which again doesn't bode well for this camera. The camera body itself is pretty big. It's around, I haven't measured it, but I'd say it's about 5 inches long, ladies. And it's got a fixed swivel privacy shutter, which you can fixed swivel. Well, what does that mean? It's a swivel shutter, which you can cover over the lens. It's got a blue LED light on the front, which signifies when the camera is actually turned on. It's got full tilt, pan, and adjust on the camera, so you can move it around left, right, up, and down, which I really do appreciate because most Logitech cameras are pretty much fixed in position and they only move up and down, whereas this goes all the way around. It's pretty much on a ball bearing. So I do appreciate that. The camera cable is detachable. Again, really appreciate that. So if you find that your camera is too far away from your PC and the cable doesn't reach, you can replace the cable with another one, a longer one. The USB-C to the camera, USB-A to the PC, but the port in your PC has to be USB 3. USB 2 does not work. So those are the vital stats. Let's talk about whether or not it's any use for you. I don't know, should you buy it? Well, I bought this for my day job, right? And I base my channel around people who are in a similar situation to me, right? Tech for industry, tech for professionals. I bought this to be a video conferencing webcam to use for Teams meetings and Zoom meetings during the day, where I'll be sat in a room lit by daylight or by ceiling lights, and to just be a regular, good old, normal, traditional webcam. That's what this was intended for. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It can't handle natural daylight. It can't handle artificial ceiling lights. It can't handle low light. Unfortunately, for this webcam to excel and to achieve its potential, it needs strong studio lighting, which I'll show you in a second. But for anything that you'll find yourself working in and day out just during the day, it's not good enough. What you're looking at right now is not good enough. And if you're looking at this and thinking, what are you talking about? This looks really good. This is infinitely better than my laptop's webcam. Yeah, it is, but this is not $250 worth of quality, right? This is 4K, $250. This is $100 worth of 1080p. I prefer this all day long, right? I've got, I don't have as much of a field of view, which is actually better for some people because then you're not having as much background, which when you're working, if you've got your wife and your kids walking around in the background and you want to blur them out, that field of view is pointless anyway. So as a subject, my skin tones are better. On Logitech, they do a better job of smoothing out skin tones. They've got a lot of processing on their cameras which do smooth out skin tones, right? My wrinkles on my forehead you can see them, but they're not as prominent as they are on the AverMedia camera. The color of my skin is far better on the Logitech camera. Eyes, Logitech again do a better job of eyes. And then if we mix them together, look at the top right, top left. I'm a pinky purple mottled mess. Bottom left, this is closer to reality. The bottom left, top left, AverMedia. I don't know what the hell's going on. I look like I'm sunburned. It's terrible. And both cameras are at their default stock settings as well. They're both out of the box stock settings. You can reduce brightness. You can mess around, fiddle with contrast settings. But without artificial strong studio subject lighting, the AverMedia camera is not going to get any better than what it looks like right now, unfortunately. If you want to prove that, we can head on over to the PW513. I can reduce the brightness from what it is at default down to 1. That's what it looks like at 1. I look even worse, right? I look orange. In between default and nothing, which is about a level 5 or 6, I'm about there. It's a bit better, but I still look severely sunburned. And then that's at its stock settings. The contrast, anything beyond the default contrast looks awful. The noise you can see the noise. It just emphasizes the noise in the camera. Look at the canvases. They're terrible. Oh, it's awful. It is absolutely, genuinely awful. That's the PW513 in natural daylight. I can show you some clips now of what it looks like when it starts to get a bit dark, when the natural daylight from outside starts to fade, and you maybe want to use this camera in just artificial light, just room lighting. It looks even worse. Absolutely terrible. Whereas the Logitech camera with artificial lighting continues to look pretty good. So fortunately, AverMedia have failed. With that, let's talk about why things went wrong, why expectations were high for this camera, and what you can do to get the best out of it. So I don't know the exact timeline, but the AverMedia PW513 went on sale roughly around 6 weeks ago in the US. Now, they're not a big company by the looks of it, but they, in this online world, right, a company can project a false image of how successful they are by just having great marketing and a great website. So I don't think they're a big company, although they look like a professional, highly successful company. I'm sure they are professional. I don't mean that in that way, but they're not as big and they don't compete with the likes of Logitech. So I don't think they had a lot of samples and a lot of resource to seed out to a lot of the tech press. They sent out 1 or 2 units, didn't pick up much of a trajectory, but one guy got a video going viral, and he probably unintentionally, inadvertently became the face / spokesperson for this camera, and that's this guy here, Harris Heller / Alpha Gaming, because he gave this camera the most glowing review a product could ever possibly have. In his review, which went live either just before or around the time the camera went on sale, he said this camera it's not even fair.
That's not even fair.
I've never seen a camera look this good. I've
literally never seen a webcam look this good.
And I've only been using it for 20 minutes.
20 to 30 minutes.
He implied all other webcams might as well pack up and go home. If you've got the budget, it's pointless even looking at any of the cameras. This is the one for you. It's pointless looking at any of the cameras, right? It was the most glowing endorsement of a webcam you could ever possibly have got. He showed his webcam, right? Live feeds of his webcam in that video. I'm showing that right now. And if I jump back over to me, clearly, it's not even up for debate. There's no argument. His picture quality and what you actually get are two completely different things, right? There's not an argument or a debate to be had. And that was the experience that every single customer who bought this camera had, which led to the anger, the disappointment, and the ultimate returns of this camera being sent back to AverMedia. So what happened there? How or why did this Harris Heller guy get such a good picture quality? Why is everyone else's picture quality different to his? Did he lie? Did he falsify that picture quality? Or did AverMedia send him a different camera to what they're selling to the general consumer base? Did they send him a roided up camera with a different sensor or different settings? No, he genuinely does have a retail unit, but he's being very and intentionally misleading in his video. He knows fine well that his camera looks like this out of the box. regardless of whether he used it for 20 minutes or not before starting the video. I don't believe that for a second. As a YouTuber myself, you don't use a product for 20 minutes and then start recording a video. That doesn't work like that. But he knows fine well that his camera looks like this out of the box. And you've got to make some adjustments, some environmental adjustments to get the best out of the camera. He had an obligation in his video to state that out of the box, this camera is not the best. And in order to get the full potential out of the camera, you need to have a certain setup in your environment. That's the bit he excluded from his content. That's the bit all the people who bought the camera didn't quite get. And that's what led to all the disappointment. He wasn't even all that, yeah, he was misleading about it. But the thing is, at around 10 minutes into his video review, he even points to his forehead and he says, I've got these 2 white patches on my forehead. And then he goes on to talk about how the Logitech camera overexposes those patches on his forehead. Those patches are studio lights lighting him up. There is studio softboxes. He didn't say that. He should have said that, because those are critical and key to this camera performing in the way that it needs to, and performing in the way that he showed it performing, and ultimately performing in the way that supported his conclusion of the camera. Without those lights, it looks like this. With those lights, it looks like this. It just transforms into a completely different camera. You need subject lighting. It's absolutely terrible in low light. It's kind of what I've been saying. I've been leading up to this throughout the entire video. Without direct subject lighting, this camera just falls apart. And yes, sure, I am very overexposed, but that's when you do go into the camera settings and you just drop the brightness down a little bit, get rid of that white spot on my face. And now I look a lot closer to what he looks like in his video. I don't have the neon sticks in the background. I don't have the youthful skin and the bleached blonde hair, but I now look a lot closer to what he did. But I need this absolutely blinding LED ring light behind me, which I can't work with. It's so bright, I can't work with this. Like if I go over to my mix, right, you can see that's blown out my G7. The aperture is wide open on that, so I would expect it to. But with auto exposure on my Logitech camera, it's so bright. The auto exposure on this camera here can't cope with it because it is that bright, right? You know, there it is. That's it. It's as simple as that. Unfortunately, the downfall of this camera is something as simple as the absolute fundamentals of videography and photography, lighting. You need strong subject lighting for this camera to work. That's what he had, but he didn't mention it. You could argue, and he probably would argue, that he would expect his audience to understand that he had that lighting in his video, and that without it, the camera would have been bad. But he should have known that his video would have reached outside of his audience, and it did. And not everybody understands studio lighting. Not everybody knows what softboxes are. Not everybody buys webcams just to stick in a room and have around studio lights, right? A lot of people, more people buy webcams for just general sticking on a monitor and using during the day kind of use. He should have known that. He didn't do that, and he was misleading about it. So maybe it was an honest mistake in that way. Maybe he just felt like he wanted to do a positive video and show this camera in its best light. I don't know, but either way, it was misleading, and that's the problem with this camera. So there you go, that's the AverMedia PW513. You gotta admit, when it's lit up like this and it's beaming at its maximum potential, it looks incredible. Like the detail and the clarity is insane. But so is the light that's shining on me right now, right? I mean, look at this, look at this. I'm absolutely exploding with light. Like, it is blinding. Just again, look at that, it's ridiculous. So you can't work like this. You can't even game like this, mate. It's so bright. Now, I can dim that down a bit, but the dimmer that gets, the less detail I get in my face. You know, the less of the light, the less details you get. So that's it. It's not really a mystery. You know, it is just lighting, but it's not obvious to everybody, right? And in those reviews that we saw from those influencers, I'm not sure if Epoch Fox mentioned it, but Harris certainly didn't mention studio or subject lighting as being a requirement for this camera to function at its best potential. So I'm editing this in afterwards as I'm in the middle of putting the video together, and a thought occurred to me. And by the way, if this looks a little bit different, it's because I'm shooting this part in OBS. The rest of the video was recorded in XSplit. FYI, AverMedia did confirm to me that they don't do any internal testing of their products on XSplit. They only test OBS in their own proprietary streaming software, which explains a few things because XSplit doesn't work great with this camera. It was a right chew on. This camera looks a little bit different. There's some post-processing going on in OBS that doesn't happen in XSplit, but never mind. Anyway, the thought that occurred to me was that I could be criticized once this video goes up for saying that, or for beating on this camera for needing studio lighting, yet the camera is called the live streamer. Mate, this is the PW513 live streamer. Of course it needs studio lighting. Live streamers have studio lighting. It's called the live streamer. You're an arse. No, come on, mate. Companies lost the right to do that when they began slapping the word gaming on literally everything, regardless of what it is and who uses it, right? You know, I'm on a gaming chair right now. What attributes does this have that make it good for gaming? Nothing, right? When they put things like gaming or live streamer or anything like that on a product, it's a psychological marketing thing for when someone's looking to buy something, especially parents, and they go, my son likes gaming, I need to buy him something. That thing says gaming in the title. It'll work for him, right? That's pretty much it. My motherboard's an Asus Z490 Maximus 12 Formula gaming motherboard. The feature sets on that motherboard are as useful for pretty much everything else you can do with a computer as they are for gaming, right? But it's a gaming motherboard. So the fact that it's a live streamer camera, that's just it's just a marketing tag, right? It's to position the camera into that sector so that people who live stream are aware of it. It's put on their radar so that they know it's there so that they can buy it. AverMedia did not want to exclude the rest of the world who need webcams, right? They didn't go, our webcam has to have studio lighting. Live streamers are the only people that have that. F the rest of the world, right? No, that was a side effect of the sensor that they put in here. So yeah, I understand if someone thinks that, but that's not the case. I'm not having that. So I thought I'd add that in. So that's it, mate. Thanks very much. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button if it helps you out. If you want to subscribe, I do stuff like this on, I wouldn't say on a regular, you know, I'm trying, but technology for industry. So get subscribed, hit the bell if you want to see more stuff like this, and I'll see you all in the next one.